My name is Barbara, and at 72 years young, I've learned a thing or two about life. I used to be a history teacher right here in Arizona, so I know all about conflict. I just never expected I'd have to live through a war of my own, a war for my life savings and for my very dignity. It all started the day my son stormed into my house and furiously demanded to know why I had changed the PIN on my credit card. He screamed at me that his wife had been humiliated. Her card was declined in front of her new business partners after she'd treated them to a fancy lunch. I stood my ground, knowing this was the first shot in a war I never wanted. So settle in and let me tell you how I fought back when my own family tried to have me declared mentally incompetent just to get their hands on my money. The sound of my front door bursting open was so violent the old hinges groaned in protest. It was 2 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon, and I was in my bedroom folding a fresh load of laundry when I heard the thunder of my son Kevin's angry footsteps striding through my home like a hurricane. "Mom, where are you?" His voice echoed with a rage I hadn't heard since he was a hot-headed teenager. I set a stack of shirts on the bed and walked into the hallway. There he was, my 42-year-old son, standing in my living room. His face was beet red, his fists clenched at his sides. Those green eyes, the same ones his father had, were fixed on me with a chill that went straight to my bones. "Mom, why is Jessica calling me in tears, saying you changed the PIN on your card?" Kevin growled, each word like a little bullet. She was at a huge lunch with major partners from her new real estate firm. She treats them to a lavish meal at the Ivy, trying to close $1 million deal, and she can't even pay the bill? You embarrassed her in front of everyone. Do you have any idea what that means for her career, for our careers? I stood there, frozen in the doorway for a second. 72 years on this earth had taught me how to keep my cool, but this was different. This was my own flesh and blood screaming at me in my own home. "Kevin, please lower your voice. We're civilized people." My voice was quiet but firm. And yes, I changed the PIN on my card because it's my card. "Your card? What are you talking about, Mom? We're family. You don't just put up walls when we need something." He took 2 steps toward me, and for the first time in my life, I felt a flicker of fear. "The card is in my name, Kevin. It's my money." "Your money? Are you serious right now? You're going to be that selfish?" His words felt like sharp little jabs. "Jessica only shops for work, business contacts, necessary lunches, professional outfits to make an impression. You're sabotaging our careers over a few pennies." I knew that wasn't true. I'd seen the statements last week. A $200 designer handbag I'd never laid eyes on, $300 for a weekend getaway to Sedona, a $500 charge at a fancy restaurant that was definitely not a business lunch. But I decided not to bring that up just yet. "Son, if you need money for something specific, we can talk about it like adults, but I am not leaving my card open for just anyone to use." "Anyone? Are you calling your daughter-in-law anyone?" His voice shot up an octave. "She is part of this family. Do you have any idea how mortified Jessica was when that card was declined in front of her colleagues? She's trying to build an image to close a multi-million-dollar deal. You're ruining everything." I sank into my favorite armchair. I had to stay calm, even though my whole body was trembling. "Jessica is always welcome in this house, Kevin, but my credit card is not an all-inclusive family plan." Kevin paced the living room like a caged animal, his shoes thudding on the hardwood floors. He was sweating, even with the air conditioning running. "I can't believe what I'm hearing. All your life you've been generous, always helping. And now, when your own family needs support, you act like a cheapskate." That word hurt more than any of the yelling. Cheapskate. Me, the woman who raised this man alone after his father passed, the woman who worked 2 jobs for years to pay for his college, the woman who gave him the down payment for his first apartment? Kevin, I will not have you speak to me like that in my own home. I pushed myself up from the armchair. My back ached in protest, but I had to be on my feet for this. Because I have seen my statements, and I found charges that I don't recognize. A lot of money has been leaving my account without my permission. All of those expenses were discussed with you, Kevin snapped. No, Kevin, they were not. He fell silent for the first time since he'd arrived. His breathing was heavy, the veins in his neck standing out against his skin. Jessica told me she always asks you before she uses the card. Jessica lied. The words were out of my mouth before I could stop them. The silence that followed was thick, heavy. Kevin looked at me like I had just slapped him across the face. I will not let you insult my wife. I'm not insulting her. I'm telling the truth. The truth is, you're getting paranoid. Maybe it's time someone else managed your finances for you. Those words hit me like a bolt of lightning. My own son suggesting I was incapable of handling my own money? My own son questioning my sanity? I think you should leave, Kevin. I'm not leaving until we sort this out. Give me the new pen. Now. No, son. I said no. I held his gaze. This is my house, and this is my decision. If Jessica needs something, she can ask me directly. Kevin turned for the door but paused before he walked out. His voice was colder than ice. This isn't over. We'll talk again when you're done with your little tantrum. This isn't a tantrum, Kevin. This is a decision. This is foolishness, and you're going to regret it when you see what this does to our relationship. His words hung in the air like a threat. My own son threatening to cut me off if I didn't give him access to my money? The door clicked shut behind him. I was left alone in the living room, shaking. The bougainvillea on the porch needed watering, but I didn't have the strength. I walked to the window and watched Kevin's car peel down the street, the tires screeching as he took the corner too fast. 40 years of being a mother, and it had come to this. My only son screaming at me for protecting my own money? The door clicked shut behind him. I was left alone in the living room, shaking. The bougainvillea on the porch needed watering, but I didn't have the strength. I walked to the window and watched Kevin's car peel down the street, the tires screeching as he took the corner too fast. 40 years of being a mother, and it had come to this. My only son screaming at me for protecting my own money? The silence in the house was different after he left. It wasn't the peaceful quiet of the morning, but something thicker, heavier, as if the very air had changed. I sat back down in my armchair and closed my eyes. The conversation replayed in my head like a broken record. Kevin's words, his tone, his rage, all over a password, all to protect my own credit card? But deep down, I knew it wasn't really about the password. It was about control. It was about boundaries. It was about the fact that for the first time in years, I had said no. The phone rang once, then twice. I let the answering machine pick up. It was Jessica, her shrill voice cutting through the silence. "Barbara, I know you're there. I hope you're happy with what you've done. Kevin is a wreck. I just don't understand why you do this to us. We're your family." Click. The line went dead. I took a deep breath and opened my eyes. I felt like I had lived a whole week in the span of 2 hours. I got up and went to the kitchen. I was hungry, but more than that, I needed something to do with my hands. Cooking had always been my refuge. As I peeled potatoes for a late lunch, I couldn't stop thinking about the look on Kevin's face. The anger wasn't new, but the coldness was. It was as if he had looked right through me and decided I wasn't worthy of respect anymore. But that sunny afternoon was only the beginning of the nightmare to come. For the past 30 years, routine was my rock. I'd wake up at 6 a.m., brew coffee in the same pot my husband John gave me before he passed, and check on my garden as the sun began to warm the flagstones. It was an organized, predictable, safe life. Kevin had always been a good son, a good student, polite, loving. When he turned 25 and landed his first job as an accountant, I was so proud. My sacrifices had been worth it. For years, we were the perfect team. He did my taxes, I made him Sunday dinner. We were close. Everything changed when he met Jessica. The first time he brought her over, I was in the kitchen making my famous mac and cheese. Kevin walked in with a grin I hadn't seen since he was a teenager, holding hands with a slim blonde woman with perfectly manicured nails and clothes that cost more than my monthly pension. "Mom," he'd said, "this is Jessica, the woman I'm going to marry." Jessica smiled at me, all perfect white teeth, but her eyes sized me up and down like I was an obstacle she needed to get around. Her handshake was firm but cold. "It's so lovely to meet you, Barbara. Kevin talks about you all the time." Over dinner, she praised my cooking, asked about my garden, and feigned interest in our family photos. She seemed to really want to get to know us. When they left that night, I thought I'd found a fine daughter-in-law. The next few visits were just as pleasant. Jessica brought me flowers, helped with the dishes, and told me funny stories about her job at a new real estate firm downtown. Kevin seemed happy, and that was all that mattered to me. The wedding was small but elegant. I paid for half of it without them even asking. He was my only son, my only chance to be a mother of the groom. Jessica chose everything: the dress, the flowers, the menu, the music. I just signed the checks and smiled for the pictures. For the first few months of their marriage, the Sunday visits continued. They'd come for lunch, tell me about their newlywed life, and it felt good to have him around. The house felt full again, like it did when Kevin was a boy. The first requests for money started innocently enough. "Barbara, could we possibly borrow a little bit? We're just a little short this month with the apartment," Jessica asked me in a sweet, almost timid voice. "Just $200. We'll pay you back on Friday." I gave it to them without a second thought. It was only $200. I had my savings, and they were just starting out. It's normal for young couples to struggle a bit at first. Friday came and went, but the money didn't. Instead, another request did. "Mom, could we borrow another $300? Jessica needs a few new outfits for some client meetings, and my bonus doesn't come in until next month." $300 became $500, and then more. Always with the same promise: "We'll pay you back soon." Always for the same reason: "We're just a little tight this month." After 6 months, it added up to nearly $5,000. When I gently brought it up over a Sunday lunch, Kevin got defensive. "Mom, you know we're good for it. I don't see why you're keeping such close tabs. We're family." "Of course we're family, honey, but $5,000 isn't pocket change." Jessica jumped in with her most charming smile. "Barbara, you're right. We've been careless about paying you back. Why don't you hold on to my credit card as collateral?" I didn't want their credit card. I wanted my money. But I accepted because I didn't know how to negotiate with my own family. A week later, Jessica called me in a panic. "Barbara, I have an emergency. My card is locked and I need to buy my mother some medication. Can I please borrow your card for just today?" And like a fool, I agreed. Just for one day, I thought. Just for medicine. That evening, I checked my statement online. There was a $150 charge at the pharmacy. Perfect, I thought. But there were other charges too. $80 for cosmetics, $200 for clothes, $30 at a cafe. When I confronted her the next day, she apologized with tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Barbara. I was at the mall and I saw this incredible sale and I thought it would be okay. I'll pay you back tomorrow." She didn't pay me back tomorrow, or the next week, or the next month. But she did keep asking to borrow my card for emergencies. An emergency for her sister's birthday. an emergency for shoes she needed for a wedding, an emergency for Kevin's anniversary gift. Always an emergency, always urgent, always paired with a promise of immediate repayment. After a year, I'd lost count of how much money had left my account. My life savings were dwindling month by month, but every time I tried to talk about it, Kevin would make me feel guilty. "Mom, I don't understand why you're being so stingy with us. You have enough, and we're just trying to get on our feet." Stingy. That word echoed in my mind for weeks. The Sunday visits grew tense. I would cook, they would eat, but the conversation always turned to money. Bills they couldn't pay, unexpected expenses, opportunities they were missing out on because they were short on cash. "If we just had a nicer car, I could get a better job," Jessica would say while playing on her new phone. "If we could move to a better neighborhood, we'd have a better quality of life," Kevin would add, helping himself to another serving of pot roast. I would listen in silence, knowing their words were just indirect requests for more money. One afternoon, reviewing my bank statements, I realized something that sent a chill down my spine. For the last 6 months, I had spent more than my retirement income. My life savings were evaporating to fund Kevin and Jessica's lifestyle. I couldn't sleep that night. I stayed up until dawn, calculating how much I'd lost, how much they owed me, and how long I could keep this up before I went broke. For the first time in 30 years, my morning routine brought me no peace. The coffee tasted bitter, the plants seemed to be wilting, and the silence of my house felt like a judgment. It was time for things to change. I just didn't know how to confront my own family without destroying everything we had. The months that followed were a slow torture of small lies and big losses. Every week brought a new emergency. Each emergency required my card, and each use of my card spiraled into purchases I never authorized. "Barbara, I need your card for Kevin's medicine. He has an infection and needs expensive antibiotics," Jessica would tell me, her voice laced with worry. An hour later, my phone would buzz with a notification for a $400 purchase at a department store. When I confronted her, she always had an explanation. "Oh, I forgot to mention I needed new lingerie, too. Mine is so old, and Kevin was complaining." $400 for lingerie. It was a special sale, 3 for the price of 1. I couldn't pass it up. There was always an excuse, always a reason why the extra charge was necessary, or smart, or unavoidable. And I, who had raised an honest son, began to doubt my own perception of reality. Sunday visits became financial reviews. Jessica would arrive with a list of future expenses that needed my support. "Kevin's cousin is getting married next month. We need new clothes for the wedding." Kevin's cousin? I knew my son better than anyone. He was an only child. "His first cousin is like a sister to him," she'd say. Kevin would just nod, not looking up from his plate. His silence had become his complicity. "I need $500 for a dress and shoes," Jessica would continue. "I can't show up looking shabby. His family is very classy." $500 for a cousin's wedding I didn't know existed to impress people I didn't care about. But when I tried to refuse, Kevin would step in with his new tactic, emotional guilt. "Mom, you don't understand how important this is for us. We're building a social reputation. My job depends on the connections I make at these events." His accounting job at a mid-size firm depended on no such thing, but I no longer knew how to argue with them without being cast as the stingy old woman. One Thursday afternoon, as I was watering the plants on my porch, I got a call from my bank. "Mrs. Jenkins, we're calling to confirm an unusual transaction on your credit card. A charge for $1,200 at an electronics store. Can you confirm you authorized this?" $1,200, an electronics store. I hadn't bought any electronics. "What store was the purchase made at?" "At Tech World in the City Mall. Did you authorize it?" "No, I did not authorize that transaction. Please cancel it, and please freeze my card and send me a new one." I hung up the phone, my hands shaking. $1,200.
Jessica had my card. She'd borrowed it on Tuesday for a headache. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Barbara, what did you do? My card is frozen and I'm in the middle of the grocery store with a full cart. It's not your card, Jessica. It's my card, and I froze it because of unauthorized charges. Unauthorized? Everything I buy is necessary. Are electronics necessary? Silence on the other end, then a nervous laugh. Oh, that. Kevin needed a new computer for work. His old one crashed and he couldn't wait. Why didn't you ask me before making such a large purchase? Because we knew you'd say no. You're always finding excuses not to help when we really need something important. The accusation hit me like a slap. I, who had funded their lifestyle for 2 years, was now the villain for protecting my own money. Jessica, come home. We'll talk when you get here. I can't come home. My card is full of food and I can't pay for it. You need to come down here and bring cash. I hung up the phone. For the next hour, my phone rang off the hook. Jessica, Kevin, Jessica again. I let every call go to voicemail. I needed to think. I gathered all my bank statements from the last 6 months and spread them across the dining room table. The numbers didn't lie. In January, I had $45,000 in my savings account. By June, $26,000 of it was gone in just 6 months. I went over every transaction, every charge, every purchase. Expensive restaurants, designer clothes, perfumes, shoes, handbags, beauty treatments, weekend trips. Nothing Jessica had bought with my money was a basic necessity. The sound of the front door opening pulled me from my calculations. Kevin and Jessica walked into my house without knocking, as if they owned the place. Mom, what's going on with the card? Kevin looked more tired than angry. I froze it. I found purchases I didn't authorize. Jessica sat down on my sofa without being invited, crossing her arms in defiance. Barbara, all of those purchases were discussed with you. You can't just freeze the card every time you forget something. I didn't forget anything, Jessica. A $1,200 computer is a big deal to not run by me. I did run it by you. I told you Kevin needed new equipment for work. No, you didn't. You told me you needed money for medicine. Kevin sighed and sat in the armchair across from me. Mom, look, sometimes emergencies change. Yes, she needed medicine, but when we got to the electronics store, they were having an incredible sale. We couldn't pass it up. An incredible sale of $1,200? The computer is normally $2,000. It was a bargain. My son, the child I raised to be honest and responsible, was justifying an impulse buy of over $1,000 like it was the most normal thing in the world. Kevin, that computer was not an emergency. It was a luxury. Jessica shot up from the sofa dramatically. I knew you would react like this. You always find a way to make us feel terrible for asking for help. I'm not making you feel terrible. I just want you to respect my money, I countered. It's always your money. We're a family, Barbara. Family money is for the whole family. My money is my own, Jessica. I worked for 40 years to earn it. Kevin stood up and started pacing again. Mom, we see your point, but you have to see ours. We're trying to build our careers, to make a better life. Your support is fundamental for us. I have supported you for 2 years, Kevin. I have spent over $25,000 on you. $25,000? Jessica sounded personally offended. We have not spent that much. I pointed to the papers on the table. The statements are right there. See for yourselves. Neither of them moved toward the table. Neither of them wanted to see the truth in black and white. The point is, Kevin continued, we need to know we can count on you. Freezing the card without warning puts us in embarrassing situations. Embarrassing? Yes, Mom, embarrassing. Do you know how Jessica felt having her card declined in front of a whole grocery store? It wasn't her card, it was the family card. Those words echoed in my mind. The family card. My money converted into a communal asset without my consent. I think I need some time to think. Think about what?
Jessica sounded impatient. About whether you want to keep letting us borrow your card? Of course she's going to keep letting us borrow it, Kevin said, genuinely surprised that was even an option. We're her family. I got up from my chair and walked to the window. My garden looked beautiful in the afternoon sun. The red bougainvillea was in full bloom. The white geraniums were thriving. Everything I tended to with my own two hands was flourishing. Why couldn't my relationship with my son be the same? I'd like you to leave for today, I said, without turning around. Mom, please. I need to be alone. I heard their footsteps head for the door. Before he left, Kevin paused. We hope you'll reconsider your position. We wouldn't want this to affect our relationship. The door closed softly behind them. This time, there was no slamming or shouting, just the quiet sound of my dreams for a perfect family shattering into pieces. But I had no idea this was only the start of something much, much worse. For 3 days, my house was submerged in a strange silence. It wasn't the peaceful quiet I cherished, but a heavy, calculated silence. It was a tactic, I knew. Kevin and Jessica were waiting me out, hoping that loneliness and the fear of a solitary old age would make me crack, would force me to pick up the phone and say, "All right, you win, come get the new pin." But they were wrong. The pain Kevin had caused had solidified inside me, turning into something colder and harder than fear. I didn't call. And then the harassment began. First, it was the voicemails. My phone would start buzzing at odd hours. I never answered, but the little red dot announcing a new message would blink like a taunt. I listened to them, alone in the night, to understand my enemy. Kevin's voice was full of self-pity and blame. "Mom, it's me. I can't sleep. I don't understand why you're treating us like this. You're backing us into a corner. Everything we do is for the future of this family." Jessica's voice was different, sweet like poison-laced honey. "Barbara, darling, it's me. I just wanted to say I'm genuinely worried about you. Maybe you're not feeling well. Please reconsider, not for us, but for yourself." The blatant manipulation didn't move me. But then they escalated. One Friday morning, when I went out to get the newspaper, I saw it. A cheap piece of printer paper taped neatly to my oak front door. On it, in black marker, were scrawled words deliberately written to look like a child's angry tantrum. "Stingy old hag." I stood there for a long moment, not in shock, but with a cold disgust that ran down my spine. This was no longer an argument about money. This was an act of humiliation, an invasion of my safe space. As a history teacher, I knew the tactic. Demoralize the enemy before you attack. I carefully peeled the paper off, folded it, and put it in a drawer. It was my first piece of evidence. But the breaking point, the final line, was crossed on Sunday morning. I was planning to drive to church, a ritual I had kept for 40 years. I walked into the garage and my heart stopped. John's 1998 deep blue Buick LeSabre, his prized possession, the car I had kept in pristine condition like a sacred relic, now had a streak of bright red spray paint running from the front door all the way to the back. The red was garish, like blood, a horrifying slash against the dark paint. It wasn't just paint, it was a violation, an attack on a memory. They had attacked the only piece of John I had left that I could touch. In that moment, any lingering motherly love I had for Kevin died, completely. Grief gave way to a terrifying clarity. I didn't cry. Tears felt like an unnecessary luxury. I knew what I had to do. They didn't just want my money. They wanted to destroy me. And I was not going to let them. I went inside, but I didn't call the police. I knew this was a war the police couldn't solve. I called Nancy, my neighbor from across the street. Nancy was a retired auditor, a sharp woman with a cool head and the keen eye of someone who spent a lifetime sniffing out fraud. "Nancy, it's Barbara. Do you have a minute? I need you to see something." 5 minutes later, Nancy was standing in my garage, her eyes narrowed at the streak of paint. She didn't offer any empty condolences. She just stood there silently, walked a slow circle around the car, and then looked me straight in the eye. "Who did this, Barbara?" "You and I both know who," I replied, my voice surprisingly steady. "All right," Nancy said, "all business. Your son and that wife of his are acting on emotion, and they're being stupid." She then reminded me to save all the evidence they were creating, the statements, the threatening note, photos of the vandalized car. I was still reeling from the fact that my own son was behind these acts. She looked at me, her gaze serious. "Barbara, they are trying to build a case that you're mentally unstable. Every single thing you do from now on has to prove the opposite. You must be logical, calm, and methodical. Get a doorbell camera today. They aren't expensive, and it will record anyone who comes near your door." Nancy's advice was like a lighthouse in a fog. It gave me a direction, a plan. It turned my pain into a mission. That afternoon, I installed a doorbell camera, and then I did what I should have done long ago. I picked up the phone and called Walter Prescott, our family lawyer and an old friend of John's. "Walter, it's Barbara," I said when he answered. "I need your help. I think my son is trying to ruin me." I told him everything, from the first argument to the red paint on John's car. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then I heard Walter's heavy sigh. "Barbara, I am so sorry. I am truly sorry you're going through this. John would be heartbroken. John would want me to fight, Walter, and that's why I'm calling you." "Of course," he replied, his voice shifting into professional, lawyerly gear. "Send me everything you have, the pictures, the recordings, everything, and do not speak to them again, under any circumstances." A couple of weeks went by. The direct harassment stopped. My new doorbell camera only captured the mailman and the neighborhood cats. Perhaps they realized I wasn't going to be an easy target and had retreated for now. A small, naive part of me hoped they'd seen the error of their ways. I was wrong. It was just the quiet before a much bigger assault. On a Wednesday afternoon, the mailman delivered a certified letter. It was different from the usual mail. A stiff manila envelope with Miller and Finch, attorneys at law, printed formally in the top left corner. My heart pounded as I signed for it. I sat down at the dining table, the same table where I'd spread out the bank statements, and carefully slit the envelope open with a letter opener. Inside was a thick stack of stapled papers. The very first line, in bold and underlined print, hit me like a punch to the gut. "Petition for financial and medical conservatorship." I read on, the cold, cruel legalese dancing before my eyes. "Due to grave concerns about the mental health and decision-making capacity of Mrs. Barbara Jenkins. Signs of cognitive decline, including paranoia, memory loss, and erratic behavior. The act of abruptly freezing a credit card and refusing necessary financial support to her family is evidence of her unstable judgment." They had actually done it. They had officially filed to have me declared incompetent. Attached were sworn affidavits. One from Kevin, detailing how his mother had changed after his father's death, becoming obsessed with money and unfoundedly suspicious of those who loved her most. One from Jessica, expressing her fear that her mother-in-law might harm herself or be scammed out of her assets due to her vulnerable state. It was all a carefully constructed web of lies, designed to paint a picture of a senile old woman who could no longer care for herself. Their goal was clear: to strip me of my rights, to make me a child in the eyes of the law, and to gain full control of the assets that John and I had worked our entire lives to build. "Walter, they filed the papers," I said into the phone, my voice strangely calm. "They wanted a war. Well, they're about to get one." The court date was set for a Tuesday morning in March, a gray, overcast day in Scottsdale, as if the sky itself was holding its breath. I wore a navy blue suit, the same one I used to wear for the most important parent-teacher conferences. I wanted to look like a professional, a teacher, not a frail old woman. Nancy drove me to the courthouse. She squeezed my hand before I got out of the car.
"Remember," she said, "the truth is your weapon. Just stay calm and tell the truth." Walter was waiting for us at the entrance. He looked confident, a thick briefcase under his arm. As we walked into the courtroom, I saw them. Kevin and Jessica sat next to their lawyer, a slick young man in a shiny suit. Kevin avoided my gaze, staring at his shoes as if they held the secrets of the universe. But Jessica was different. She looked right at me, not with hatred, but with a cool, almost pitying confidence, as if I were an animal being led to the slaughter. That arrogance, more than anything, cemented my resolve. The hearing was over faster than I expected. Kevin's lawyer, Mr. Miller, gave it his best shot. He called another neighbor, one Jessica had been confiding in, to testify that I'd become reclusive and forgetful in recent months. He presented the credit card statements from before I froze the card as proof of my erratic financial management. He spoke of his clients' heartbreak and concern for their mother's well-being. But Walter dismantled their case piece by piece. He not only presented a full medical report from my doctor stating I was in perfect mental health with no signs of cognitive decline, but he also brought out the evidence they never saw coming. "Your Honor," Walter's voice boomed, "the petitioners claim Mrs. Jenkins is paranoid. But is it paranoia when your son and daughter-in-law have secretly funneled over $50,000 in 18 months to cover gambling losses from cryptocurrency investments?" He produced the bank records and crypto exchange statements his team had unearthed. Kevin went pale. "They say she's acting erratically, but is it erratic to change your PIN after discovering that? Is it erratic to refuse to continue funding a lifestyle you were clearly never told about?" Then came the final blows. He played the voicemail recordings. He displayed a photo of the stingy old hag sign and the red paint on the Buick. And finally, he played the video from the doorbell camera, which clearly showed Jessica at 2 a.m. creeping up to my door and taping the sign to it. "Your Honor," Walter concluded, "this is not a case born of concern. This is a case born of desperation. It is a blatant and cruel attempt to strip a woman of her autonomy to get control of her assets. We not only ask for this petition to be dismissed, but for a restraining order to be issued, and for the petitioners to be ordered to repay every cent they took." The judge, a stern-faced man in his 50s, didn't take long to decide. The petition was dismissed with prejudice. The restraining order was granted, and Kevin and Jessica were ordered to repay $150,000, which covered the stolen money and my legal fees. As the verdict was read, Jessica just stared into space, the confidence wiped from her face, replaced by a hollow emptiness. Kevin put his head down on the table and began to sob, pathetic, choked sobs. I looked at him, the son I had raised, and I felt nothing. No pity, no satisfaction, just a cold emptiness. We had won, but the victory tasted like ash. I thought it was over. I was wrong. A week later, as I was trying to piece my life back together, an invitation arrived. It was on thick, creamy cardstock with glittering gold lettering. Prestige Realty Partners cordially invites you to a celebration and appreciation gala marking our first successful deal and the official launch of our firm. At the bottom, a handwritten note in Jessica's loopy blue ink. "Dearest Mom, we know things have been difficult, but you will always be our biggest supporter. Please come as our guest of honor to see the success you helped build. Your presence would mean the world to us." I read it over and over. A trap. A shameless, ridiculous trap. After everything that had happened, they still weren't giving up. They weren't inviting me out of love or remorse. They were inviting me because they needed me. The lawsuit, while not front-page news, had created whispers in the Scottsdale real estate and social circles. Their reputations were tarnished. They needed me there, smiling by their side, to prove to the world it was all a family misunderstanding, that the wealthy mother was still behind them. They wanted to use me as a prop to whitewash their image. I looked at the invitation, and an idea sparked in my mind, a cold and daring idea. Justice in a courtroom is one thing, but there's another kind of justice, the kind served in the court of public opinion. They wanted a show, I'd give them a show. I called Walter. Walter, I'm going to the party, and I need you to prepare a certified copy of the court's judgment. The restaurant, The Sanctuary, was one of the fanciest places in Scottsdale, nestled on the side of Camelback Mountain. The lights twinkled, jazz music floated through the air, and champagne glasses clinked. Kevin and Jessica stood at the entrance, greeting guests. Kevin looked uncomfortable, but Jessica was radiant. She was in a stunning red dress, smiling brightly, as if the humiliating court hearing had never happened. When I walked in, alone, she rushed over to hug me. "Mom, I knew you'd come," she whispered in my ear, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Thank you so much." I just gave a small, tight smile. The party went exactly as I'd expected. Empty speeches about vision, hard work, and, of course, the foundation of family. Finally, the moment they had been waiting for arrived. Jessica took the small stage, microphone in hand. "And now," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "we want to offer a very special thank you to a very special person, someone who is not just a mother, but our angel investor, the one who saw our potential when no one else did. Please, a huge round of applause for our mother, Barbara Jenkins." All eyes turned to me. The room erupted in applause. Jessica held out her hand, beckoning me to the stage. I took a deep breath, felt the crisp document in my purse, and walked up. I stood at the microphone, looking out at the sea of strange and vaguely familiar faces. I even saw their lawyer, Mr. Miller, sitting at a front table, looking distinctly uncomfortable. "Thank you, Jessica," I began, my voice clear and steady. It's true, I was an investor in their dream, an involuntary investor, you might say. A few nervous chuckles rippled through the room. I continued. I invested in vacations I never took, designer clothes I never wore, and a rather substantial cryptocurrency debt I did not create. A hush fell over the room. The smile on Jessica's face froze. "You see," I said, looking directly at their business partners, "success does need a foundation, but you cannot build a mansion called prestige on a foundation of lies. This company, ladies and gentlemen, was built not on sweat, but on a widow's retirement savings." I took the document out of my purse. "And this," I said, holding it high for all to see, "is the proof of my investment. This is the judgment from the Maricopa County Superior Court, ordering the brilliant founders of Prestige Real Estate to repay me $150,000 for financial abuse and fraud." I could hear someone gasp. I saw the flash of a cell phone camera. "I trust," I concluded, my voice like ice, "that with the brilliant success you are celebrating tonight, settling this debt will be a simple matter. Congratulations on your first success, and good luck with the first debt you'll actually have to pay on your own." I placed the court document on the lectern, turned, and walked off the stage into a dead, shocked silence. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could feel the world they had tried to build with my money collapsing around them. I walked straight out the door, leaving the ruins of their gala behind me. The next morning, I woke up early. For the first time in months, I felt light. I went out into my garden, where John's roses were in full bloom, the morning dew still clinging to their petals. The sun was rising over Camelback Mountain, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. My phone rang. It was Walter. "Good morning, Barbara," he said, a smile in his voice. "I just heard from a friend at the Arizona Republic. They're running a story. It seems last night's party is the talk of the town. All of Scottsdale real estate is buzzing. I don't think Prestige Realty will be selling a single house anytime soon." I smiled. "Justice isn't always served in a courtroom, Walter. Sometimes it has to be served in front of the very people the guilty are trying to impress." You really are a history teacher, Barbara. You taught them a lesson they will never forget. We chatted for a few more minutes and then hung up. I stood there, in my garden, and took a deep breath of the fresh morning air. I had lost a son.
That pain would never entirely go away. But in the process, I had found something far more precious: my self-respect, my peace, and myself. History taught me that empires built on lies are destined to fall, and my family, sadly, was no exception. But after every fall, there is a chance to rebuild. And this time, I would be rebuilding my life, for me.